The movement that hurts you is the movement that you should be doing to get better. I know this kind of goes against the typical advice that you usually hear and might sound a little bit backwards, but that's kind of the point. So typically when you go to see someone after you've been hurt, let's say you hurt your back doing deadlifts, they're going to tell you, one, probably that deadlifts are bad for your back, and two, that you likely rounded during them and you should always keep a neutral back whenever you have to bend over and stop rounding your back. Well, to that I kind of have to say, do they know that the spine actually flexes anytime you significantly bend forward at the hips? And two, how are you going to ever bend over to pick something off the ground? Or what are you going to do if you have a kid and you need to take them out of their car seat? Good luck doing that without bending and twisting. Get a little bit more, I'm going to hit my set first. Or another common example is one that really goes along with the workout that I'm doing is, you hurt your shoulder during the bench press, so they're going to say that bench press is bad for your shoulders and you should stop doing bench press, or in order to make it safe, really tuck your elbows and arch because that's safer on your shoulders. Again, that's just kind of showing that, hey, certain movements are dangerous, and it's fear-mongering, which certain movements aren't really dangerous, and that ignores the fact of preparedness for movement and building capacity for a movement, and that load management and your preparedness really kind of play the biggest roles in injury. So this mindset is all about how movements are bad and it's getting you to avoid things, getting you to avoid using your body in certain ways because it's breeding this idea that you're fragile and you can't handle certain things and your body can't adapt. So the problem with this is that now it creates this fear around movement. That movement gets avoided, and then eventually over time you become weaker in that movement. So the funny thing about this is that you may actually be more likely to get injured in that position or movement again, because now, one, you're afraid of it, so you're not going to be as strong and confident in that movement. Two, you actually have less muscular strength and coordination in that range of motion, so you're actually less likely to be able to withstand the forces that are going to be applied to you while you're doing it. So this idea that you're fragile actually kind of becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy and like a positive feedback loop into itself, because you think that that movement's bad and it hurts you, so you avoid doing it. And then the next time you have to do it, you're actually weaker and you get hurt doing it again because you're more likely to get hurt. So that reinforces that belief that, hey, this movement is bad and I actually can't do it. So you just avoid it and avoid it. And eventually your life just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And you're one of these people walking around trying to move like a robot and constantly working on your ankle and hip mobility. And when your back feels like crap all the time because you just never use it and you never take through those ranges of motion, you never actually load it. So whenever you do have to use it, it can't withstand anything. This goes to any body part, not just your back, right? Your knees, your ankles, your shoulders, just anything. You just start avoiding these movements because of that fragile mindset that has been now pushed and instilled into you from these professionals that are looking out for your well-being. A much better approach is to adopt a resilient mindset. So instead of thinking that whatever hurt you is bad and you should avoid it, you should kind of flip that thinking and be like, I guess I wasn't quite as prepared for that movement as I thought I was, right? Maybe it's the weight, the range of motion, the sets, the reps, the frequency, whatever it is. Look at it in a different lens. Instead of viewing it as bad, view it as, I wasn't prepared to do that. That flips the script and puts things in your control. Instead of a movement being bad and you having no control over it and you just being a weak, little, brittle human being that can't adapt to anything for some reason, you're such an anomaly to the rest of humans that can adapt. understand that, hey, I can build up the capacity to do this. I just need to find the right entry point for me, build it up, and work on things over time, and eventually I will be able to handle that. There's no bad movements, there's just movements you aren't prepared for. So when you get hurt, understand that's what it means. And understand that you can prepare for it. Bring that control to yourself, change that mindset, and adopt that resilient mindset that you are resilient. And thinking this way really builds up so much more self-confidence, and it'll help you achieve so much more and just live a more fulfilling and less stressful life. You'll honestly just be way happier overall. Being resilient, guaranteed, is a way to make you more happy and increase your quality of life. As an aside from this educational video, I got an absolutely huge pec pump right now from these close grip bench, and I hope that you're working out too, or getting ready for your workout, and that this pumps you out. I want it to kind of be like a little couple bros having a good pump session, just chatting. So thanks for watching. We'll be keeping on with this, but again, thanks for coming along for this workout. That was a good set. Okay, so how do you kind of break it down and keep working and build up this resilience mindset and build up the capacity to do the movement? Well, I already have a pretty good video on that, going over it, the WMBP framework. I can link that into the description, but I'm also going to go over that in this video so you can kind of get everything all at once while you're just kind of having this off-the-cuff chat while we work out. Also, keep in mind that this is just for educational purposes. Please seek guidance from a professional and work with them if you're dealing with an injury. And kind of as an aside from that, I am a professional, and you can work with me for guidance with an injury as well. I do in-person and online work, so if you are interested in that, you can leave a comment down below here, and I'll reach out to you, or you can also just shoot me a DM on Instagram. Those are probably the two best ways to kind of get in contact with me. My Instagram is just KH Movement, but I'll also leave a link in the description to it to make it easy for you. That's probably a fun throat noise to hear. Okay, let's say that I got hurt during a bench press, and just to be a little bit more specific, it was at the bottom in that very stretched position. What would I do to build up to be able to handle the bench press instead of saying, okay, benching is bad, I need to work on my arch and my shoulder tuck, and get a little fluffy so I have less range of motion because that'll protect my shoulder. Instead of having that fragile coping mindset, I would continue to bench. So I'd try to find a way or find a weight that my regular setup was comfortable at. So I'd keep everything with my setup the same and just lower the weight until I can bench it for at least one rep. Then I can change other things like the frequency, the sets, the tempo, the amount of reps during the set, and so on. But still trying to keep some of the actual bench press in, because actually doing the bench press is going to stress that area and that position and those muscles and different structures that I got hurt with that need building up. So there's one, I would keep benching. Two, I could add in some variations that make me limit the weight a little bit, but keep it challenging. So I can do like pause bench. I can make it long pause if I wanted to, like 5-second pause. This can keep the workout fun and keep you with a goal and kind of make you feel like you're making a little bit more progress too. And it might work on some weak points that you actually have. Yeah, I could do some pause bench, tempo. I could do feet up, close grip, whatever it is that kind of is comfortable. limits the weight, but still gives somewhat of a challenge if you can do it. Then I can also modify the movement a little bit so that I can push the bench in other ways, like, adding in a block to it so that I'm not using quite as much range of motion, or doing like a Spoto press where you're pausing a few inches off the chest, so that that bottom position is getting a little bit of rest while it calms down. It's still getting stressed with the other things, don't worry. And then you're kind of pushing the rest, so you're keeping, your triceps a little bit stronger, your anterior delts a little bit stronger, because you're still pushing that movement pretty heavy. I am supersetting these with some like bench hammer curls, where the focus is on just being straight out like that. I'm just not filming them for ease, but maybe I'll film them in between and make a little short or something. So if you're interested, it might pop up on your shorts feed. Then the next thing to do after kind of keeping the movement in and modifying it a little bit is to break the movement down into all its components and work on all of the component movements and muscles involved in the bench press. So I'm looking at really hitting my triceps, anterior delts, my pecs, getting that shoulder horizontal abduction and extension, and then working into adduction and flexion, so working all the movements and building up tolerance, especially to those end ranges. So, I could do things like overhead press, really push anterior delts and triceps. And then I also love doing French press, so I'll be doing that soon, and that'll really push the triceps. And then to work on the pecs, I can do things like flies or push-ups, weighted push-ups. Find a chest press machine that's comfortable and use that. Dumbbell bench some way might be more tolerable and actually able to push my pecs. So just finding ways to work all of the component musculature. So recall in this hypothetical scenario that I hurt my shoulder in the bottom of the bench press, so that stretched position. Now, instead of having that fragile mindset and thinking, okay, I need to avoid that stretched position as much as possible, really arch and try to not get into it, and thinking that, okay, I'm fragile and weak and my shoulder just will never be able to handle that. I'm flipping the script, having that resilient mindset and going, oh, I didn't realize that I wasn't prepared for that position. This opened my eyes to me seeing that, hey, I wasn't as strong there as I thought I was. So now I need to build up the resilience there to be able to handle the bench press and more. I want to be able to handle more in that position and build it up to the point that it can handle more in that position than the bench press is ever going to throw at it. So I'm going to get way stronger in not only that range, but more extreme ranges of motion too, so that the bench press is no problem and I don't ever really have to worry about hitting my capacity there. So when I'm doing things like the flies, I like to do my flies on the bench with dumbbells. I'm going to go all the way to the ground so that I'm really reaching back and gaining a lot of strength there. Maybe I'll use like a pec deck machine and really extremely change the range of motion. I'll do things like behind the neck press and pull downs, so my shoulders getting into those extreme ranges of motion and having to deal with like external and internal rotation even. And I'm going to do things like the whole dowel behind the back, locking and unlocking the shoulders. And another one of my favorites is like a reverse cable pull down. I kind of get set up there, or like a barbell roll back, and really hammer that shoulder into extension and get it strong there and get it to be able to withstand those extreme ranges of motion. Doing dips as well and really getting that big stretch on them is going to build up my shoulders a lot more and make them way more resilient and stronger in that position. And I'm just going to do things, another example that just popped into my head, sorry to kind of come back to it, doing the weighted push-ups, but on blocks so I can go further down, or on rings so I can really go past where my body is and get those extreme ranges of motion. Really build up the strength, range, and tolerance to all of that, so that when I'm building the bench back up, that bottom position is so comfortable and I don't have to worry about any weakness or limitations in capacity in that stretched position. And I'm gonna feel strong there and confident and understand, hey, my body's resilient and I built it up. I'm not gonna have that fear and that apprehension going into that movement. That's another thing with injuries that usually plagues people for so long, is they're always afraid to go back. There's always that little voice in the back of their head. I like to work my body to the point where I completely forget that I had an injury somewhere. I forget injuries all the time, and I no longer think about limitations in certain movements because I've built my body up so much in so many different ways that I don't even care about it anymore, because I know that it can handle it. And I know that if I do get injured, I'm just going to build it up even stronger again in that range. But yeah, so I'm just going to build up that tolerance to be able to handle more than I ever will need to, so that I can completely forget that injury. And that should be the goal. It shouldn't just be to get back to what you're doing, but still have that apprehension. That means you're not fully rehabbed. It's still living in your head. You need to build up so that you have zero thought of that injury and full confidence in yourself and full confidence in your resilience. I was getting heated there. And doing French press actually really relates to this point great. Remember, there was a few years back, I can't remember how many years back, but that study came out looking at forces in the triceps, and especially like the elbow joint too, I think, with a push down versus an overhead extension. They found like, oh, overhead extension had higher forces. So then it was demonized to do anything overhead. And everyone's like, oh, don't do your tricep extensions overhead. So something like a French press, that's off the table. And so many times I hear people, oh, I can't do the French press. I feel it all in my elbows. And they think, oh, it's bad, it's hurting my elbow. That's just you building up tolerance in that area. You're stressing the tendon. It's building up resilience to that movement. You're building up resilience in your elbow to that movement because you've avoided it for so long. So now you're weak as heck there. Trying to keep it PG for the YouTube algorithm and monetization. But yeah, so now you're just weak and fragile there. You need to expose it to that position and build it up. Get your overhead tricep extensions in. Get some French press. Start off with like a 20-pound bar or something if you need to, and build it up over time. But you can handle so much more. Just because something's a little bit uncomfortable doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that you need to build up the tolerance to be able to do it. The first time I did French press with just the bar, it felt a little bit awkward. I mean, I had done a lot of overhead tricep stuff before I did French press for the first time, but it still felt a little awkward because it's a little bit more extreme. But after a couple sessions building it up, I was able to ramp up the weight pretty quickly. And now it's a staple in my program, and I'm doing it all the time. Like, I'm pretty fatigued now, so I'm only doing 3 reps with 60 here. But I usually do this for like 4 to 6 when I'm doing it on a power day, and then pushing my French press for more reps. This I'm kind of just burning out, working in that lower rep range. I'm okay with 2 to 4 here today. But the point, that's a little tangent, the point is that, you know, you can build up the tolerance to handle anything, and that no movements are bad. Thinking that certain movements are bad and that you should stop doing them if they hurt or if they hurt you is such a fragile mindset, and it really is plaguing health and fitness. It is holding you back from accomplishing your goals. It is holding you back from enjoying your life more and just doing more activities. Understand that you can find that entry point and build it up. That's the whole point of this video. Nothing's bad. Adopt that resilient mindset that you can always improve. This extends everywhere. Getting a little philosophical there. And another cope that I always hear is people being like, oh, I injured my shoulder bowling back in 93, so I can't do bench press because it still hurts. That injury has definitely healed. The tissues in your shoulder have definitely healed. The reason it still hurts is because you've avoided things and now you've let that area get weaker and lose muscle and lose capacity, range of motion over time. So now it can't handle those activities, not because of the injury, but because you've let it atrophy or get weaker. You never built it up, and your brain still remembers. It still holds that fear. Your brain's really good at remembering injuries. And same with your body. So it's going to be more sensitive and protective over that area because you hold that fear around that movement. That's that fear avoidance, that kinesiophobia that you may have heard of. So that is going to increase the pain with movement. That's going to increase your apprehension with doing it. And that's that remembering the injury and always kind of holding back. You need to build up that area. It's not injured anymore. You can overcome it. It's been long enough, and you just need to find the entry point, build it up, and you'll be able to do so much more with that shoulder. You'll find that this happens all the time with every area of the body. People also love to talk about it with a rolled ankle because they never actually rehab their ankles. They just slowly go back to what they were doing, but they never try to strengthen things more. It's such a fragile mindset to think that, you're some anomaly that's so fragile and you're not able to actually heal and your body's not able to build up tissues, which is like the whole point of exercise. I don't understand this whole cognitive dissonance with it where it's like, yeah, I can build it up doing some exercises, but some exercises I can't. I just straight up don't understand how people can do the mental gymnastics to just kind of justify that, but that's an aside. But yeah, you can just build up that area. You just need to find the right entry point. Build it up over time. The body is amazing at adapting, building muscle, building up other tissues as well, changing how it has to move if certain structures are, certain structures can tear and be kind of changed forever or potentially regrow, but sometimes things need to change how they move, but your body can adapt to that. And I love this example in people with rotator cuff tears, supraspinatus specifically. People that have that muscle torn, their shoulder moves different. So they have more shoulder blade movement, but it doesn't correlate with pain. It doesn't correlate with dysfunction. The body just adapts to be able to still be able to do all its movements. And it's fine because there's enough redundancy built in that it doesn't necessarily need all the muscles to be perfect. It can do a lot with the other muscles. Your body can adapt and you can be resilient. You just need to give it the tools to build itself up. And you need to have that self-confidence. Anyways, thanks for watching and listening to me rant. I hope that this was helpful. Again, I'll link my Instagram in the description if you want to reach out to me. I hope you have a good rest of your lift. I'm going to finish my lift. Now go out there and make some gains.